Go ahead. Do the whole podcast with a British accent. No, it'll be perfect.
All right, let me try.
Yeah, she's very good at accents.
Hello. Welcome to another Stupide Podcast. Today we're doing a stupid podcast. I sound more like a, how you call that, a computer animated voice.
No, you sound British, which is, don't worry, it's very, very annoying. I agree with you completely.
I love British people. All right, the first question.
Yeah, go ahead. No, do the whole podcast. Come on, you started.
All right, first question. Strength and conditioning training approach for judo and jiu-jitsu through the lens of acute training.
Right, next one you have to do the Texas accent, but that's the next podcast.
Texas? No, I want to do the LA girl.
Oh, God.
accent.
That's going to be hard. Anyway, strength and conditioning for jiu-jitsu. So, right. What is the correct approach to all this with Q training, obviously? But the whole point of jiu-jitsu is first things and understanding something. Jiu-jitsu will break your shoulders, right? There's a guy constantly trying to choke you, so crank your neck or kimura you or armbar you or whatever. Your shoulders are constantly under tremendous stress. Your knees a bit if you're more into leg locks, which is a new game. Your hips are working a lot. Your back, some people have back pain, but if you look, it's mostly neck pain, elbow pain, and shoulder pain. Right, so that means that we cannot use an activity that puts undue stress on the shoulder. So what do I mean by that? If you start snatching heavy weight and your form is not where it needs to be because you're not experienced in that particular activity, you're gonna get wrecked. Like, it's just not a good idea. So the idea to have to do like CrossFit with Olympic weightlifting movement till failure for a long time for jiu-jitsu is going to be a nightmare. Like, your shoulders just won't take it. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, people don't understand the pressure that is put on shoulders through jiu-jitsu. Like, remember, this guy is cranking on them constantly. So you get to your jiu-jitsu session in a fatigue state where your shoulders are already very fragile from all the movement, like the long head of the bicep is pissed, so your AC joint is hurting, stuff like that, and crack, the guy come with a kimura, and now you have a tendinitis, and your shoulder is hurting for 3 weeks, and you can't train. That's mostly what I see, but that's because you're going with high waist movements that are just too stressful on the shoulder to prepare you for jiu-jitsu. It's just not gonna work. It doesn't work like that. Yeah. Do you want to train hard or do you want to be good at jiu-jitsu? In that, if you're going to do that type of workout, you can be good at Olympic weightlifting, you can be good at jiu-jitsu. You're not going to do both.
Yeah, and I think also if you have a separate jiu-jitsu coach to strength and conditioning coach, it's very important that the strength and conditioning coach understands the sport you're doing.
Yeah.
Because
they're gonna see MMA stuff like that, and what they're gonna think is you need to be more explosive. Therefore, snatching. Yeah. It's true, explosive is great, but so two problems with that approach. The first approach is explosive is great, not at the expense of your joints, because they're gonna be put under so much pressure from the act itself, right? Like, you're gonna get grounded on a regular basis. So it's a major issue. So what would we do instead? Well, the key is to work. So if the shoulders, so my view of it is the first thing you should do is make your shoulders strong, right? Same thing with the knees, same thing with the hips, stuff like that. Like, don't break. Usually that's what stops you from getting better at jiu-jitsu, is breaking, either in jiu-jitsu or in training. So let's make sure we don't do that. So that means a lot of structural work, low waist exercise. The sled is great. So to make strong shoulder, we need the pecs, we need the teres major, we need the living shit out of the long head of the biceps, because the stronger the biceps are, especially the long head, the less it's going to put pressure on your AC joint. You're going to need that AC joint not to be inflamed when you get kimura'd. So long head of the bicep, short head too, but training like again and again, and trying to limit the exercises that are putting too much pressure. So let's say you like to build a chest, we're gonna bench press. Not the best exercise, but doesn't matter. Like strict press, we could even do bench press. The first thing I would do is I would limit the amount of rotation of the shoulder. What do I mean by that? If you do a close grip bench press, like you bring it all the way down, there's a tremendous rotation of the shoulder that takes place. So instead of doing a close grip bench press to your chest, do it to a block where your arm comes parallel to the ground but no lower than that. That way you can focus on extending the arm, all pressing without having an excessive rotation of the shoulder that puts stress on, for example, the long head of the biceps. And that makes you go toward your traps, that puts the shoulder at an uncomfortable angle and makes you use your mid-back too much anyway. So let's do block pushes, let's do push-up with weight where you can control the descent, but every time, don't let yourself excessively rotate the shoulder on pressing movements. Then you're going to get the pecs going, and then the triceps because they're stronger. But then, so that's good, right? And then we get the biceps. So if you want to do a curl, don't use your back too much because people swing the living shit out of it. Put your back against the wall and then do curls like that. That will allow you to not use your back, and then we can get at the long head of the biceps like that. The rope pulls is still the best exercise you can find for all of this. Get your lats going. Get good at pull-ups. You can do that. We can start with the bend. We can start with lat pull downs. You know what I mean? But you know what I mean? Like the approach is very, very different. So when it comes to lifting, that's my approach. It's like, let me make you not break first.
And don't make it too draining. Like not that
don't make it too draining. Bodybuilding is not going to help you.
Show up the next day to practice completely wasted.
And that's the problem with.
I see a lot of strength and conditioning coach who are
that love to push.
And they just love to bless someone and don't make them benefit from the exercise, the training.
Right. What is the main goal of the session? Is it to make you better at jiu-jitsu, or is it to train hard for that sport? Like if you want to compete in CrossFit and compete in jiu-jitsu, good luck. You won't make it to black belt. I can tell you that. Like it just doesn't work like that. I mean, and it brings my second point when it comes to conditioning. Look at black belt world champion levels. They have competition 20 minutes or stuff like that. Do you see many of them breathing really hard, unless they're fat or stuff like that? But do you see the best ones rolling? A Gordon Ryan. Do you see a Gordon Ryan out of breath ever? No. You know why? Because he spars constantly. You know what he does for conditioning? Jiu-jitsu. He does some lifting and stuff on the side. But his cardio is jiu-jitsu. Why? Because cardio is very, very specific to what is it that you do. I can give you a great cardio on an airdyne that will do absolutely nothing for jiu-jitsu. Like obviously if your cardiovascular system, it needs to translate. If your cardiovascular system is shit, any work at first will help. Because like let's say you're really out of shape or like you have no endurance whatsoever, then any endurance will help to a certain degree. Once your endurance, your cardiovascular system is built a little bit, then it needs to apply directly to the sport that you want to do, in that case jiu-jitsu. So you want to get better at rolling, you need to roll. Don't kill yourself, but again and again and again and again. So that's the first issue with conditioning. When they push you so hard on a sled or stuff like that, like once a week is fine. But if every workout that you have is that hard, it's going to create another problem. What you are training yourself to do is to redline. That's why I always said that CrossFit cannot work for Jiu-Jitsu. For a simple reason. A CrossFit workout is a constant redline. You're pushing the machine as hard as you can push it, and you maintain that for as long as you can. This is the opposite of what you want in a Jiu-Jitsu match, or roll or whatever. The whole point of Jiu-Jitsu is to be alert and under control at all times. Look how smooth the great Jiu-Jitsu guys are. They're so smooth, they never look like they're working. It's all technique, they flow, like they follow the flow. There is no flow in a CrossFit workout. There's only like as hard as you can. You cannot take that into Jiu-Jitsu. That red line mentality of pushing so hard you're gonna die is the last thing you want. You know why? Because you can't think straight. If you're in the middle of a hard CrossFit workout, there is no way you can stop, know what I mean, and do anything that requires thinking.
It's borderline hard to count.
Exactly. Right. If you stop and ask you a simple task that requires a little bit of even special orientation, stuff like that, you're being capable of doing it. What is your coordination like in the middle of a CrossFit workout? It's shit. That's why you can't keep the form going, because that's not the state you're in. And so I don't want you to train that state for Jiu-Jitsu. On the contrary, I want you to stay away from that. Because once you're in that state, it's too late. You're going to get killed. If your mouth breathes in an MMA fight, everybody knows you're in trouble. And the guy in front of you, he knows. And he's going to start targeting the body, by the way. But if you look at the good one, they're always in control. Look at Anderson Silva, all those guys. This is not what you want to train. That is a state. a system that is not the one you want to train for jiu-jitsu. That doesn't mean you should be good at marathon either, but whatever you do has to apply to jiu-jitsu. So that flow, being able to move and everything, you're going to learn that from jiu-jitsu. You can go swimming would be good because swimming will teach you to do an effort and not breathe all the time. Because when you do jiu-jitsu, the guy is lying on top of you. Sometimes you have to hold your breath, relax, hold your breath, relax. So control of the breath is 80% of the cardio in jiu-jitsu. If you learn to push like a maniac in CrossFit, you go into jiu-jitsu, that might work as a white belt, but the second you're purple, you're done. What you're gonna have to learn is to control your breath. Hickson Gracie talked about it, that's really what matters. Swimming can help you in that one.
So if you look through the Q training lens,
yeah.
How would you approach it to the...
Right, so I would do like the same thing, the airdyne for 10 minutes at Q-1. Why? Because I would go on an airdyne and set the pace that I like for my jiu-jitsu. That requires you to know your game a little bit. So that we're talking like kind of purple, brown and black. Right, so there's a pace at which I like to move while I can remain in the specific mindset. I'm gonna find what that pace is on the airdyne and I'm gonna keep like that. And then if I want to play once in a while, I might spike for 30 seconds and put myself back into that place. Spike a bit, back into that place. So but I would train myself to go back to that specific place, that specific mindset where I move at the pace I want to move while being able to think.
And just the strength and conditioning part?
I would make sure that I protect my joints first. Strength is jiu-jitsu.
So nothing aches and until...
So I would work the hips. So for example, like I would make sure my adductors are very strong because I use them all the time, but also very mobile, right? The glutes have to work because the glutes are the opposite of the adductors in that sense, not from the physiological, but they work hand in hand. So glute med versus glute max, right? They're going to help you a lot because quads are not necessarily what you want in that one. So posterior chain has to be correct. My obliques have to be very, very strong because of all the movement I'm going to do, control of the breath and holding dealing with someone. I want to make sure my pecs, teres major and biceps are where they should be. So my internal torque chain in order to save my shoulders and my neck, because to be good is going to require 10 years and you have to be able to still do it 10 years later. So you have to have like the neck not, starting to slip discs. You have to have your shoulder working, all that stuff. Like taking care of yourself is what matters. And so that should be strength and conditioning. Goal number one is take care of the person, right? And so from a strength perspective, from a cardio perspective would be like if the cardiovascular is really bad, then yes, let's build it up at first. But after a while does it apply? Control of breathing is more important than cardiovascular capacity in jiu-jitsu. I don't care if you do marathon, I put you on the ground, I start putting you in certain position, you tighten up, you can't breathe. If you can't breathe, I don't care what cardio you have, we're all the same.
So cardio through sparring.
Cardio through sparring. And then Q-1 in order to learn to stay in the right state. Yeah. That we can use conditioning for. But then I would train the mindset. I would train the mind in that sense through cardio, but not just cardio, because cardio by itself for jiu-jitsu is useless. Train the mind, train the mindset, the state. That's what matters. And that the airdyne, the Q-1, the Q-1 is great. It's like get to that stage where like your Q-1 and get Q and if you push a little bit, learn to come back and every time, or can you stay like 20 minutes at the same pace where you're uncomfortable? There is no place more uncomfortable than a jiu-jitsu match not going well. So learn to be not comfortable with it, but learn to accept the discomfort without freaking out. There is no better way to do that than with a Q-1. Yeah. So again, you do need to build a cardiovascular capacity, but there are many ways to do it. And at first, if it's really bad, again, like just any conditioning will do almost. Once it's built, the applications are very important. And at that moment, I think control of the breath, so that's why I like the swimming idea. Control of the breath and doing the Q-1 in order to learn to stay in a specific state that fits you the best. And the strength and conditioning, honestly, is don't break. After that, once you have done all this, then yes, can we make you stronger? For sure. Once you build a structure.
As long as it translates. That's the mistake that I made a lot in my sport.
Yes, to translate.
Is that where I would go in blocks of strength training, I would just not translate, and I would just,
Yeah.
it would just make my sprint less good because I was so tightened up. So that's what I had to learn.
Yeah, but that's because you train like shit. Like
Yeah.
your coach didn't know what he was doing. He didn't. Like
No, I
your
know
training
that
was
is
horrible. Like
Very
you never engaged the glute, you never engaged the hammy. Your squat was high. It was all quads and glute mid, which is not the muscles you want for the. You want it off the blocks, but you don't want it for the sprinting. So that's why all that stuff built you off the blocks, which you're very good at. But past that, you didn't translate that much, except making you tired and more susceptible to certain injury because you keep popping the imbalances. So there's that too. Is you have to take care of the imbalances and the deficiencies
Find a very
first.
good strength and conditioning coach for sure.
A guy who understands the necessities of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
That's what you need. Like just your regular guy who just is gonna blast you every session. That might be fun for the first year, 2 years of your jiu-jitsu career, and if you're 22, but the shit is gonna get old really fast. Trust me. And
Especially
long
if
term,
injuries come into play.
like you take the 20 top jiu-jitsu guys in the world, make them do stuff outside of pure jiu-jitsu, and honestly, I don't think they have strength or cardio capacity that much higher than your average dude.
Yeah.
That's not what they're good at.
I think that's a misconception of a lot of people that don't train, is that people who are on a high level are good at any
Sport. Yeah, exactly. That is
very
not true at all.
not true.
And like jiu-jitsu is on the ground. The movements are very, very specific, and it's so relaxed. Because on the ground, like it's long 20, 30 minutes non-stop, constantly rolling. Oh my God, it's almost exhaustive stuff on the ground, but it's a very, very specific type of strength and conditioning. So the coach has to know that so that he doesn't direct you toward being really good at snatching. I don't know that it translates to jiu-jitsu. My opinion is it doesn't. Yes, he'll make you more explosive. For what? For a takedown? How much of that is part of the jiu-jitsu game? For MMA, more explosive, the snatch will not translate to you punching harder. I got news for you. You telling me it translates to your wrestling? Yeah, to a degree, that's true. But wrestling is only one part of the game, right? It doesn't translate to you kicking harder or punching harder. The hardest punchers, you're born with it anyway. But we have like world-class strikers in the gym in Amsterdam. They can't snatch for shit. And I would not want to be punched by them or kicked. And we have world-class, like literally, world champions. They don't need the snatch. That's not, I mean. Yeah. And they already have shoulders hurting. Like what they need is a strong internal torque chain. That's what they need. That is my opinion. If you don't agree, then just blast me in the comments and let's have a conversation. Like I've done enough jiu-jitsu that I think I know what I'm talking about, but I would love to have your opinion and then let's talk it over.
Definitely.
Cool. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Oh yeah, you lost it.
I lost it.
Trader. It's okay because like being a trader to the Brits is kind
maybe
of being on the
people
good side
will
of
get
history. So
offended
yeah.
Because it's not as spot on as it's supposed to be.
There you go. So if there's any British people, she betrayed you, which puts her on the side of the French.
You guys are so fabulous.
So it's all good.
I had your accent.
Did you ever see that show? Absolutely fabulous. See, she's a double trader. Talk to everybody soon.
Fabulous. Ciao.